Hello again, my marvelous mid 400 students. Here's Dr. A with your week 11 rundown. I hope you are doing well. I hope you are taking care of yourselves. I hope you are taking care of those around you. I hope you're making sure that you were taking time during the week to do a little self-reflection, take some time to breathe, take some time to do something that you enjoy and that will recharge you throughout this craziness. So we are in week 11. We are getting to the home stretch, and that's perfect because today I'm going to introduce you to your final project. Not saying that we're done after this, of course, because there's still so much to learn, but this is going to be the assignment that I'm going to ask you to turn in during finals week as kind of a culminating experience for everything that you've learned this semester, continuing to move on from here. It's going to build on something that we did last week, so I'm excited for you to participate in it, and I'm excited to see what you come up with. Excuse me. So we are going to, in addition to that, I'll talk about that final assignment in a second. This week we're going to talk about assessment. Because we're going to do phase 2 of our lesson planning process. Now, with Backwards Design, our phase 1, what we did in previous week was come up with our goals, our objectives. We took those standards and we broke them down a little bit, coming up with specific learning objectives we want our students to do. That's part 1 of the Backwards Design process. We want to figure out our destination. You don't get in the car for a giant road trip unless you know where you're going. So that was part 1. Now we're in phase 2, which is all about assessing. If we have this goal for our students, how are we going to know if we got there? How are we going to be able to track their progress towards that goal? And that's what phase 2 of Backwards Design is all about. Phase 1 was that the goal setting. Phase 2 is the assessment. And then the next step that we'll do in a future week is where we actually get into our lesson planning and we come up with the instructional strategies and classroom management and all that stuff. But for right now, we're just going to be looking at the assessment. Now, assessment is this really powerful term that means different things to different people, as so much in education does. So assessment is tied into like evaluation. It's also tied into grading. It's tied into feedback. There's all these different words that are connected. Some people conflate them, and some people take one thing to mean another. It's kind of crazy. So I want to share my experience with this. Assessment, like I said, is our opportunity to check in with our students and see the progress that they're making towards the goals that we've set for them. And assessment can take lots of different forms. Sometimes assessment is graded, sometimes it's ungraded. Sometimes it's formal, sometimes it's informal. Sometimes it's in process, like while we're teaching, or like in a break of our teaching, and sometimes it's at the very end. So assessment has this big idea. It's a big umbrella of everything from the PISA and TIMSS tests to state assessments at the end of the year, all the way to the instruction or the exit tickets that you might give to your students at the end of class to just check in and see what they learned during your teaching. So we're going to break this assessment idea down. The way we're going to learn about assessment is first through reading part of a chapter. So this chapter is from a book called Becoming a Teacher. It's one of the resources I considered assigning for this class. It's a really good book, but I didn't want to require you to buy 7 books. I didn't think that would be very good. So this, what I've done is I've scanned half of a chapter on assessments called High Quality Assessment, chapter 11. So the chapter is bigger than the document that I've given you, but I want you to read the whole document. The first part of the chapter is about like big state tests and standardized tests, and I don't care about those right now. I want to focus more on high quality assessments of individual lessons and units and things like that, things that you can create and control. So I'm going to ask you to do the reading, the entire PDF that is scanned and uploaded to Blackboard. That's written by Parquet, so I want you to check that out first. Then I'm going to ask you to watch this really cool video that's an RSA Animate. So Carol Dweck is a renowned educational researcher. She's brilliant. And somebody took one of her lectures and then did an animate of it, meaning that they essentially like drew out images to go along with what she's saying. And I think it's really cool. Plus, there's all kinds of like nerdy pop culture references in there. But it's this really cool video talking about how do we help each child fulfill their potential. And it ties into the language that we use, the feedback, the mindset that we create with our students. And it's really cool. It's a talk from 2015 that I want you to check out and enjoy that. Then there's a very short article by Sackstein that I want you to read. It's called Shifting the Grading Mindset Starts with Our Words. So that's something important that I want you to be mindful of when we're talking about grading. I hate grading. I hate grades. I think they are an awful part of our educational system. And I think that we have a real problem with grades in our current system. With that said, I know I give you grades and you have grades in this class because the university requires it and I like my paycheck, so I'm going to do what they say. So what I do is try to navigate within the system in which I exist. I am not the president of the university. I am not the provost. I am not anybody but a lowly professor. So I operate within the system, and as a teacher, you're going to do that as well. But it's important that we come up with our own philosophy, our own understanding, and we push it in the directions that we think are best when we have that opportunity. That's a topic for a great discussion. If anybody wants to have that conversation later this week or later this semester, I'd love to talk about it. And I can tell you it's about some of my experiences with grading and different policies I've tried and philosophies and battles that I fought over grading. But that's grading. I want to talk about assessment. I don't like grading, but I love assessment because our whole goal is to make our tiny humans into amazing, brilliant thinkers. And we have these great goals for them. So it's important that we, again, understand the progress that we're making towards those goals. And assessment is a valuable resource and strategy and tool that we can use to do that. So assessment is awesome. So you're going to read the Parquet, you're going to watch the Dweck video, you're going to read the Sackstein article about assessment and grades and language and all this important stuff. Then we're going to get into lesson planning 2, or lesson planning phase 2, which is creating assessments. So last week, you had that document and it asked you to take your standards and your goals and get feedback and all that other stuff. I want you to take all of that information and put it in the new document that I've given you. You're going to see it's like the top part of it is almost the same. So you're going to fill in those boxes. Hopefully you're incorporating feedback and reflection to improve what you did before. And then you're going to develop your assessment plan. And this isn't just theoretical. I want to see your assessments. I want you to actually, if you're going to give a quiz, I want to see your quiz. If you're going to give them an exit ticket, I want to see the prompt for the exit ticket. If you're going to be teaching a math classroom, I want to see the actual problems you're going to give your students to assess their understanding. These assessments should definitely and absolutely have to be connected to your learning objectives. Your learning objectives are your goals. Your assessments need to check the progress towards reaching those goals. So whether it's in the middle of class or at the end of class, or maybe it's a couple questions off the test that you're going to give them a week and a half later that ties into what you're learning that day. I want to see how are you going to assess the progress your students are making or have made towards your learning objectives. So that's what I'm going to ask you to do for your lesson planning document phase 2. So take all that information from last week's document, update it, change whatever you need, improve it, put it in the document for phase 2, and then give me your assessment plan and your assessments. So that's what you're going to turn in this week. Now, let's talk about that final project. Your final project I call HEMS, H-E-M-S, which stands for Highly Effective Middle Schools, which is our goal. That's what we want to create. That's what we want to be a part of. Last week, I asked you, what would it take to create like the most amazing middle school? And this week, is when we're going to start taking those ideas and really building on them. And last week was brainstorming. This week, we're going to start doing the actual process. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do is to read over the document that I've posted that outlines what you're going to do, what I'm expecting you to create. Now, this final project is a group project. Groups are going to be 3 to 4 people. I'm going to let you determine your groups as long as the groups are developed inclusively, not exclusively. Now, by that, I mean that you, as a whole class, need to be working and adjusting yourselves to make sure that nobody is left behind, nobody is excluded. You need to figure out how to arrange yourselves in groups of 3 or 4 so that everybody has a group. I have a deadline in there. I want you, one person from each group, to email me and say, Dr. Egner, here's my group for the HEMS assignment, and give me a list of your 3 or 4 names. Copy your group mates on that so everybody knows that that email has been sent. And then that way that gives me an email that's already prepared, that if I can reply to it and I can send an email to your entire group, I can hit reply all. So I want you to read the document about what HEMS is all about. Ask me any questions. If you're unsure of something, if you don't understand something, let me know. I am working on the rubric right now for that assignment. That will be posted, and you can check that out later. Hopefully I'll have that up for next week. But for this week, your main focus is developing your assessment plan for your lesson plan. If you have any questions, let me know. I will say I had 4 amazing conversations this week over Zoom with different students from my classes, and I loved it. It was like the highlight of my week. I love talking education, so if you ever want to talk about what we're learning this week, what you've learned throughout the semester, please schedule something with me. I'm happy to talk. I'm really excited to have these one-on-one conversations and continue to build this community that we have as a whole. The other thing I'm going to ask, now that we're in week 11, we're more than halfway through, if there's something that I can be doing differently for the next couple weeks to help you improve, to help you understand what our goals a little bit more, some feedback that you have for me, I would love that. My goal is to be the best possible educator I can be, and part of that process is self-reflection. Part of it is talking to colleagues and getting advice and sharing these videos with colleagues and saying, hey, how am I doing? What is this? Does this make sense? Things like that. But a big piece of this is getting feedback from my students. So if you have the desire to give me some advice, how I can improve this semester, how can I improve this course next semester for a different set of students, how I can improve the program as a whole, because that's a big mission of mine right now. I'm like redesigning the whole middle level program. I would love your feedback. I am totally open to constructive criticism.